fashion, be able to have conversations between council members, our staff, and our residents. And we did a little bit of that really informally next door. And the format for the rest of the meeting is if you have something you want to talk about, questions you want to ask council, you may do that from your chair. We do ask that you come to the podium just because there's a microphone. We do tape these and rebroadcast them, and the microphones don't pick up very well from out in the audience. So, so my name's Steve Voss. I'm your mayor. Council member Wanda McLaren, Brian Mundell, Tim Harrington, and Suzanne Urkel. And then Jack Davis, our city administrator, is also at the counter here. And Jack, I'm going to let you right now do introductions for our city staff. We have various city staff members in the audience too.
Thank you, Steve. We have Craig Yoakum, our city engineer, Nate Ashford, our public works director, Stephanie Hanson, the community development director, Nick Schmitz, our building official, and Mark Ducharme, our fire chief.
Okay. So if you tonight, if you have questions that are specific to a department or to an issue, we have our department heads and staff here to answer those questions as well. So we don't have a real format to this other than I think what we'll do first is, anyone have a question? Anyone want to make a statement or ask the council any questions? What pressing issues do you have? Okay, good. If you could just, your name and address if you like, so.
Don Johnson, East Bethel, Okinawa Street, that's all I feel comfortable giving out. 20 years been here on the street.
All right.
So I was looking at the budget that you had posted.
Can you put the microphone closer? Oh, thank you.
I was looking at the budget that you guys had posted, and is there someplace that we can see what general government is? And general government planning and zoning, like detailed information, rather than just broad terms.
We have the budgets on our website now.
Okay.
In detail, but we certainly answer some questions now if you have. Jack, you want to just give a?
Yeah, it's on our website. Now that's for 2022. We're just starting now to do the preparation for the 2023 budget. So general government should be broken down into several categories. Among those, all those departments, which include finance, administration, community development, the building department, city engineer, and those would be the major components of that category.
And can we go back and find last year's budget?
All
Just to kind of compare?
All the budgets are on there. You can find
Okay.
them on the website, and if you want to, I can show you where they are when the meeting's over.
Okay.
And I think, Jack, every year for our budget, we have a summary that shows various years. You go back, what, 5 years or so?
That's correct. There'll be a 5-year period where you can go back and compare previous budgets.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, because broad terms, I don't get them. I need a breakdown, just so I know what you mean by general government, because it may mean totally something different to me. And then looking at our tax rate comparison, East Bethel seems like it should be more in line with Oak Grove, Now Then, Linwood, small rural communities. It looks like our tax rate comparison is higher than Blaine, Andover, Anoka. How come?
Actually, our tax rate, we're 8th among the Anoka County cities.
Mhm.
Our tax rate has actually come down from 59% to, I believe it's 38% now. The reason ours is higher than Ham Lake, Oak Grove, Linwood, and Now Then is because we are an emerging city transitioning from rural to more urban development along the corridor. These other cities, with the exception of Ham Lake, do not have those kind of pressures that we do, and they're able to operate on less money, and they probably provide less services.
They don't have infrastructure.
Correct.
What about Blaine and Andover? How is theirs, and Anoka, how is theirs smaller because they have a larger tax base?
They have a huge tax base, and that tax base is the commercial and residential tax base, which is actually taxed essentially 1.5 to 2 times higher than the residential
Yep.
rate.
Is that called, is that an FTE? Where everybody, I've heard that term before, where businesses are taxed greater. What is that there's a term for it.
There's,
A tax equivalent?
yeah, it's called the tax capacity and the tax classification, and there's also the fee that they pay too, in addition to that tax rate for, trying to even out the tax rates for all the cities in the metro.
What are plans to keep because when we first moved out here, it was like, yay, our taxes were so low. It was amazing. And still compared to other people that we know in Anoka County, in some other areas, they tell me their taxes and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's ridiculous. How do we plan to make it lower, basically?
Well, we do that every year with the examination of the budget, and since 2015, we've never had a tax rate increase that exceeded 3%. This past year, it was 1.9%, which is just barely keeping up with inflation. So I think council has exhibited a very conservative fiscal policy when it comes to taxes and done a fantastic job in trying to keep those low. And if you look at that tax rate schedule, you'll see that even though Andover and Blaine are lower than we are, we're getting close to what they are, even with our tax base that's primarily residential.
And the only way to bring the taxes down really is what services do you want to give up for that?
Okay.
So,
And that's I'm willing to definitely have that discussion. So what are areas we could cut?
parks, snow plowing,
Parks? Easy for me to say because my youngest one is in her 20s.
One of the, it's never in our budget, but it comes through when we have our audits every year. And there's a table I'm always impressed by, is that we have one of the lowest per capita spending for city services based on our residents. And yet we provide full services in terms of police protection and fire, everything else, but our per capita spending is like one of the lowest in the county. And so despite the fact we're kind of, we're not in the middle of the tax rates, but we're able to deliver these services really at the lowest rate, so.
Who looks at this budget and who looks at it and says, okay, I guess I don't need Netflix. I guess I don't need Comcast. We'll cut that. There's gotta be something that we can cut because it looks like it just grows a little bit every year.
Well, there's lots of things you can cut, but as Mr. Mundell says, there's gonna be a corresponding decrease in services. So instead of plowing snow when you get 2 inches, we get 4 inches. Or instead of doing parks improvements projects this year, we do them every other year, every third year. Or instead of having the law enforcement coverage we have, we cut back on that. Or we cut back on fire services, we don't respond to any medical calls. Those are what the cuts would have to entail, and it's just a matter of what choices we want to make.
So you're saying we have no wasteful spending?
There is very little wasteful spending here, and if you'd like to sit down and go over anything with us, we'll be glad to sit down and you can kind of make that determination on your own. We'll be glad to go over that with you.
yeah, and the meetings that we have to review the budget are open to the public. We welcome public input for that, so is it in June?
Generally start in June.
June, we'll have the preliminary discussion about that, and we'll have a presentation from our finance director, and he will review everything. So I would encourage attending that meeting.
And they're in
It'll be-
broken down terms, not
Yes,
broad strokes?
yes.
Okay. Are we at a 2-inch trigger for snowplow?
Actually, we plow snow based on conditions. Sometimes it could be 1 inch, it just depends on what the condition of the snow is. We try to gauge it on time the snow with the amount it's gotten. But from a safety aspect, we're out there quite a few times because if you have an inch of snow, there's always places in the city that are very slick and very dangerous. We may not do the whole city if it's an inch, but there are certain places we go to make sure that are taken care of.
Sure, and I don't know
Yeah.
who's doing my neighborhood, but they do a good job. So keep sending the good, send the good guy to my neighborhood, absolutely. You said that the finance director is there to go over anything during that June meeting?
He presents it to us.
Okay,
We actually started with the finance committee,
Yeah.
which is basically a subcommittee with council and some staff, and then we present that budget to council.
okay. There's no one from the public? It's city
When it
and
gets to
staff?
council, it's public, yeah. It's, you know,
Preliminary gets to council.
sometimes we only have a couple meetings on budget, sometimes we will have 5, 6 meetings in a row. We talk about certain items within the budget, so when you find a document on site or online, you'll see how detailed it is. I mean, it's a good thick book, so
It's a good read.
Yes.
I'll let you be the judge of that. So, but you know, it's very detailed. You know, and I appreciate your comments and questions, because that's kind of the checks that councils and staff need when you're asking those questions. But, you know, the thing to keep in mind is, you know, we're here as a council, as a city staff. The city's here to provide services to residents. And so what, in my mind, what our real job is to identify all the services, prioritize the services, and then find ways to fund those in a way that's the least, you know, pain on our taxpayers. So it's always a challenge going back and forth, and I've been around the city long enough that I can tell you that the staff is continuously looking at ways to cut costs, you know, not just out of budget, but just in day-to-day work. So we're all here to serve the residents, and no one wants tax increases, but they all want their services. You know, you've identified the parks, you know, our police services, our fire services. I mean, these are all things that we provide as a city. So we just need to find the best way to provide that. And having that income and that criticism is good. Is very good to have. So.
No criticism, just inquiring minds. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who's next? Kevin.
One of the things you want to factor into the budget is $900,000 of the budget is debt service. And that's due to the sewer and groundwater stuff that an unelected body, the Metropolitan Council, recommended to East Bethel and promised the future. This goes back a few years. But those payments will continue, and they'll actually increase over, what is it, the next 12, 13 years?
2040.
2040, so that's $90 a year per person, so that's where some of the money goes. My name's Kevin Lewis. I live in the eastern half, south shore of Coon Lake on Colleen Street. And been out here 26 years. And I could be a smart aleck and say, well, Coon Lake is paying a lot of the budget for this city, because, you know, I look at properties around there, and someone off the lake is $2,000, $2,200. Our property taxes are almost $5,000, and our house is smaller than the house I'm talking about that just sold about 2 weeks ago. So we really get dinged on the lake, and you can always move. You don't like it, right? So I'm not complaining about it. We like it there. But I'm here to reiterate questions I asked at the last council meeting. Just, I take the approach, what I lack in intelligence, I make up for with persistence. Okay, I'm like a drip of water. So eventually, it turns even the hardest rock into sand. But actually, I don't have time for that. But I really do believe that the public forum of city council meetings need to be, they are recorded and they need to be posted the same way as council meetings. I really believe that that's required, actually. And you mentioned that there was grandstanding or whatever, and that's probably about political stuff or something. But they are part of the meeting, and they do really need to be posted. And now they're recorded, but they're not posted. And it seems that's a chance for people who get on the web and look up the city, and it's a good website. You know, it's a good website. And you can get on there and you can see the meetings without having to come here and do it at your leisure, and so. And I really think that the public forum, the 15 minutes before 7 o'clock when the meeting, city council meetings start, they need to be posted up there. And I'm going to reiterate that as long as I need to. The other thing, the other question I asked is, last time was where that, the salaries of the city employees are on a step system. And I wanted to know, where does this step system come from? Because it says if you have this, you know, this amount of time in that job, you get this step, and all this kind of stuff. And Jack mentioned to me earlier that they're still trying to figure out where it came from. Do you realize the ramifications of that? That's everybody, every city employee's pay for the last however long. Their increases and all that are made according to a system that no one can determine the origin of. It's like it was just made up. It fell out of heaven or something. And that is all those budgets going back however long, apparently back to 2005, 2004, 2000, something like that. There are real significant ramifications for that. And no offense, but I'm not even on the city council. I don't work for the city. I've never taken a dollar of the city. I've just paid. And I could figure out that something was weird about that. And it never dawned on anybody on the city council or working for the city to ever wonder, where did this step thing come from? It's an algorithm for determining pay increases which affect pensions, which directly affect the costs. And it's like, I can't believe that it took an outside guy to ask a simple question. I was very surprised by that. And so, bottom line is, as a result of repeatedly having problems with the city and Anoka County with these, I mean, at times preposterous property valuation increases, just going back a year and a half. They said our property went up $60,000 in 1 year. And I said, I used to be licensed in real estate. I did valuations for businesses, for their assets, real and otherwise. And I said, well, you know, where are you getting this from? And so I talked to Ken Tollefson, the city assessor, the contract assessor, and I appeared before the city council of East Bethel and said, you know, I think this is an unfounded increase, but not, you know, not 20% or whatever, you know, a huge, enormous increase. And I got turned down by the city council, so I went to the Board of Equalization, and they agreed with me. They said, this is preposterous. Knocked it down $40,000 the first year, and it's dropping another $15,000 in the next year. They said this, and they're realtors and appraisers. They know what I was talking about. And so as a result of all this and all these questions, I've begun the process in my research. I've got it right here. Instructions for executing petition for examination of county and municipal records. I'm going to begin a petition to have the state auditor audit East Bethel, because I don't know what else I can do. And something has to interrupt this cozy relationship between some of the service providers. Somebody has to stand up for us, the taxpayers, in this situation, you know, and I'll shut up at that, but that's what my next step is to start the petition process, and it requires 20% of the people in East Bethel who participated in the last presidential election and then you submit it to the state auditor. So
So
that's where we're at.
Kevin, we talked a little bit last time about the step system on the way staff is structured that way. Jack, can you explain that a little bit?
And the way it's set up, and it's been that way since I've been here, is that at some time in the early 2000s, there was a study done to match job descriptions to the duties that people were performing. And to determine what they were worth, this step system was set up at that time to reflect the pay for those positions. That's been in place now for well over 20 years. We did go back, Kevin made a request to see where it came from. We've gone back and looked through all the electronic files and haven't found anything, so our next step is to go back in some of the paper files and the books to see if we can see what the origination of that was. But essentially, that's what it is. The step system is a pay grade for each job description that we have that matches what the pay is over 7 steps. Once they're hired, if you're hired at the lowest grade, you can get 7 steps, if approved, as you progress in your job.
But you don't, I'm an economist by training, okay? There's an old saying, hey diddle diddle, distribute the metal, the premise controls the conclusion. So if the premise is, if the source of this, call it an algorithm, a matrix, whatever you want to call it, that is the tool that you use to determine what people should be paid, if you don't know the nature of it, the origin, what the quality of it is, you don't know the quality of the tool you're using, you don't know what your results are. You see what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying, but.
But
now-
I know my impression is that it's skewed in favor of extremely high salaries compared to what is paid in the private sector for anything close to the same amount of work.
No, the only thing we've done, we do a comparison with surrounding cities, and we're not.
Which isn't a good comparison because they all might be under the same kind of.
No,
system.
that,
We don't know.
I mean, that's true, but we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're kind of right in the middle. But that's the market when you go to hire somebody nowadays, that if you don't meet some of those things, and then you're not gonna get anybody, but.
That applies over the past, 2 to 3 years maybe. Before that, the economy wasn't quite so tight labor-wise.
Well,
And this goes back, by your own statement, 20 years, so.
well, but, to give you an example, everything's gonna be related to the market on what it is. In 2013, we had a public works position that we had 140 applicants for. The last time we had a position open, we had about 12.
Mhm.
So, the supply and demand is there also in relation to the private sector.
Yeah, and it changes,
yeah.
it ebbs and flows, I know, yeah, I'm aware of that. Anyway, thanks for your time. One thing you want to bear in mind, though, is that $900,000 price tag for debt service. For a town the size of Mayberry, that's a chunk, that's a big chunk.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Mr. Harrington mentioned 2040. Is that when we no longer are obligated to pay?
That's when the bond is up in July 40,
Okay.
the last bond, yeah.
Okay, so 2040,
2010 A and B.
so it's kind of we can check that off our list. We paid our debt and we're done with that? Okay.
We actually paid off a bond last year.
2.
We,
Paid off 2 bonds last year, the sirens and the fire station, we paid 2 of them off last year.
Now, and is it possible to pay this one off early?
it's possible, but, I mean, in terms of being eligible to pay off early, but because of the size of it, we wouldn't be able to do that. Now, actually, when these people, most of them took office, the city had 6 outstanding bonds. They paid 4 of them off. One of them was the C bond that was associated with the water and sewer project. The other one was the fire department, the Castle Towers bond, and there's one other, I'd have to look it up to see what it was. So they reduced the outstanding bond debt on the city in terms of numbers from 6 to 2, excuse me.
Okay, so 2040, mark
Yeah.
it on the list.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Wells. I live on Edmar Lane. And I would like to talk about, I would love to see the council consider consolidating garbage services. So we live on a cul-de-sac, a long cul-de-sac, and on garbage days, we'll see, you know, if it's garbage and recycling. I think there's 6 haulers, maybe. I meant to sit and count them at some point before I came and talked to you about it, but, and so, you know, that's a lot of trips. And our roads, obviously, take a beating from these trucks, and it's noisy, and there's a lot of exhaust, and the kids that try to play on that street. And I mean, it's dangerous, and I think it's bad for our roads to have this many haulers, basically, so I would love to see the council take that up as an issue. I'd be curious to know, like, if you would need some kind of support from residents, or how that would work, you know, how it works to bring something that you guys would discuss as a possibility.
I believe Ham Lake, they have contracted service?
I'm sure that they do, because they don't have their own.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they, I think they only have one contract with Waste Management, I believe, so. So
That,
there are some communities that have done it, so.
and so, some even do it, you know, they may do it by geographic areas too, so you'd still maybe have 2 or 3 contractors. But instead of 4 different companies running up and down the same street, you'd only have the one.
Right, that would be the point.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I know there's pros and cons. I read through and listened to the whole Anoka debate. They went through this a couple years ago, and I read everything that they had on it just to kind of understand what the pros and cons of, you know, both sides say about it. But I'd love to see our city take that up as a possibility. I think it's hard on our roads, and if we want to keep our taxes low with our street budgets and that kind of thing, I think that could really help. I know there's this whole thing about competition. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, obviously that's, but I think it would be competitive if it was a couple-year contract that was bid out every couple years or something like that. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then I also wanted to mention earlier, one of the speakers said, is there nobody from the public involved in the budget process? I recognize that you are all members of the public. Sometimes I feel like we feel like you are not members of the public for some reason, maybe because you're on the other side of the counter. But I want to thank you for the work you do. I feel like it's kind of volunteer work, frankly. I think that the amount that you get paid to do an ever increasingly difficult job, because the public is more and more involved in city everything in the last 5 years. I think that's good, but I think it just makes your jobs, all of you up there, very difficult. So I just wanted to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's stay a sec, let's talk about the garbage, because I've thought about that, I've had others talk to me about that too. And I read up on what other communities have gone through, and it seems to be it's definitely a win for the city because of less traffic on the roads, it's less wear and tear on our roads, so long-term, it's hard to envision that, but if we get one more year out of that road because we're not letting, you know, 18 trucks down, or, you know, each week, rather than do 4 or 2, you know, it's hard to see that. The competition part of it, I mean, it's competitively bid, you know, so there is that competition, but it does take it out of the homeowner's hands on deciding who to go with, and I understand that, that's important to a lot of people. But what seems to be the biggest problem is the actual waste companies themselves. So they've got their own legal staff, and they will fight every one. And obviously, you know, cities and residents don't have the means to fight that. So I mean, I think it takes a real grassroots kind of action by the community, and not necessarily just a council action trying to force something through. But to me, it makes all the sense in the world. And I think even for the businesses, you know, they got guaranteed business, they know where their routes are, you know, to me, it makes all sense, but sometimes common sense doesn't always win out, so.
In one of our upcoming newsletters, could we write up some sort of article, get residents' opinions about this? If they have an opinion, an email or something to address the idea, if there's interest, just to
I'm
garner.
kind of a business not trying to cause controversy in the city.
Oh.
I think there'll be such an,
I think that would be such an uproar, look
It
at what
would.
St. Paul went through.
good or bad, you know, it will happen, but that's one way to find out is,
It's not a bad idea at all. I've sat and looked at our neighborhood and thought the same thing. You know, there's trucks coming through our neighborhood on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Mhm.
And you get, you know, recycling and regular, and it's like, really? We can't do something about this?
and if you're home during the day, that's when you're
It
really,
is.
that's when you
That's when you
notice it. If
notice it.
if you're not home, you don't notice it, so.
Or when it's snowy and it's nasty out and they've come through.
I mean, certainly it also would add, you know, administrative duties at the city level. You know, what would that be? You know, that, currently the city doesn't bill for utilities or anything, so there would have to be something there. That would be a cost. But all of it, I feel like there's just a huge area of an opportunity to do that at the city level, frankly. I'd love to see it happen, so.
And I was thinking that maybe for people who live on cul-de-sacs, as the mayor said, more of a community effort. Maybe talk to all your neighbors and pick one garbage company, and all you guys just have that one coming up and down your street. And I live on a kind of a thorough road. The trucks come in and they go around, and they're not going back and forth. They just go one way, in and out. So, and I've changed my garbage company a couple of times because of being dissatisfied. So if the city chose one, I would not want one that I was previously dissatisfied with. So, but I think a community effort is probably the best option for everybody.
Perhaps you just started the discussion, Mary, so.
Yeah, I think the last time we had a discussion about it, that was kind of the result of the answer was it might be best just to do it in the community on your street.
And you might get a better rate if you do that because they're willing to, you call one and say, I got this rate from the other one, and a couple of them will play, a couple of them won't. And I'm pretty sure everybody's bill just went up with another fuel surcharge line I saw on mine last week.
So that's where I think it would make more sense to have the city negotiating that. I think from a volume perspective, the city would have more negotiating power, because I do see my neighbors constantly switching. And as a person who's very busy, I'm very busy. I mean, most people are. Like, do I really want to be sitting on the phone to the garbage company every year to say, oh, can you beat this rate? Can you beat this rate? I think from a volume perspective, the city would have more negotiating power. So, I mean, I like the idea of getting together with your neighbors, but if there's 10 that go in, I don't think you have very, you know, as much power to negotiate, frankly, as the city would if they were negotiating with a couple of different vendors. But thanks for listening, and thanks for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Mary.
Thank you for being here.
Well, who knew I was going to have a conversation so much with you guys tonight? I do not like that idea. I do not want any one of these 6 people telling me that I have to have a specific one because we all negotiated it. It is my responsibility as a homeowner, my responsibility as a person that lives on a certain street, that if I want a discount, get with my neighbors and try to get a better discount. I work in an industry where if you refer your neighbor, I'm going to give you and your neighbor 5% off. We run diesels, the gas is expensive, but we still do that. Get another neighbor, everybody gets 5% off then. It's just a group that way. Ooh, but my heart is beating so fast I'm about to pass out. I don't want these 6 people doing anything more for me if I can do it myself. And I will take 30 seconds out to call all the neighbors and say, hey, what do you think about this? Okay, let's follow it up with coffee at my house on Saturday and do it that way. But it is not their job to be getting any service for me other than police, roads, and ambulance. That's about how I feel about it. So, I will fight tooth and nail for that one not to happen because that's my responsibility, and I'm not relinquishing any of that responsibility to a council that I may or may not have cast my vote for. So let's have a discussion outside of it. I know there's got to be a middle ground. There's got to be a middle ground where everybody's happy. And if that means me giving you information of my hauler, because they're awesome, I've been out here almost 21 years, had the same hauler every time. They've never once jacked with me in any way. In fact, just got my 2 neighbors on board with me because they were going with somebody else. So, and we're on a busy thoroughfare there. So, yeah, just my 2 cents.
Well, and here's the counter argument. Again, like I mentioned, we're here to serve the residents, right? We're here to try to do what's best. I mean, if I told you that if we had a single garbage hauler, that it would save $100,000 in road costs each year. I'm just making a number up, but if we could save $100,000 to the taxpayers every year, is that worth giving up your right? It's
No, because I'm giving up something. It's almost, if you do this, I'll give you this, and I don't play those games. So.
Well, again, that's.
It would be,
I mean, that it is within the realm of what cities provide for services, so, it's something that cities can do.
but it's something that we are giving up, and it's just an inch here and an inch here and an inch here, and before you know it, you got drones flying over your house, and you're measuring out every little thing. I don't trust it. The more I relinquish to someone that isn't myself, the less rights I have.
I respect
And
that.
just not something you know what, I will pay the $100,000 for the road. If it were that big of an issue, I would go to my neighbors. They're my first line of defense anyway. They're your neighbors, Let's get a better deal on the paper boy that's coming through, and so he only has to make one stop, or whoever's coming through, your weed man, your garbage man, your tree man, whoever you've got servicing your house. It should be on that local, little level, that cul-de-sac you live on, that street you live on. Not the whole city. I don't want to drag everybody else with me. So,
Okay.
we're not Anoka. We're East Bethel. How many square feet do we have for each person here? Anoka's dense. We're rural. So, and we moved out here from Coon Rapids not to be told we had to have a certain garbage recycler. So,
Okay.
my 2 cents.
Anyone else have any? Here we go, here comes an issue. Good evening, Randy.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, residents, my name is Randy Plaisance. I live on 192nd Avenue Northeast. And if you don't know where that is, it's down by Our Savior's Lutheran Church. I guess I am going to poke a little bit at the budget and costs for the city as well tonight. Back in the April 11th City Council meeting was approved the Parks Acquisition Plan for the following years, starting in 2023. And the first project that is on that list is ball field lights for the northern ball field over here on West Booster for $130,000. I question whether the city should really be investing that amount of money for a project that is really only going to be good for a few hours during the week, at night, and only during the summertime, especially when we have seen recently that within the past decade that there has been a reduction in interest from the youth in professional sports. And we're talking baseball, we're talking football, we're talking hockey. And I think especially when staff and council has been looking at whether or not we should invest in the ice arena because there has been a lack of interest, and whether or not we can fill all the slots in order to do that. So my question to city staff and council would be, has the city looked into the advisability or being able to explain why we should invest in that item at this time. And I'm not against, upgrading any of our parks, but I think it has to be done for the right reason and at the right time. And I think especially now with, the way that the economy has gone with inflation and other items, that there are other items that may be best used, like trails, instead of this ballpark lights. So that's my question, and I have one other after whatever answer you'd like to give.
You want to field that, Jack?
Yeah, I'll start out, and Nate, if you have anything to add, you can come up here too. From recommendations from the Parks Commission, this was a project that they felt was needed. I'm not sure exactly what kind of data they gathered to justify the light installation, but it was felt that this was a needed park improvement to provide opportunities for extra hours for baseball activities in the evenings. The cost of the lights, I believe, is estimated at $130,000. This is a project would have to be bid. If it came over bid, then it would have to be reconsidered, but the information that the council got came from the Parks Commission and their discussion of this project. Nate, have you got anything else to add on that?
No, I think you summed it up exactly how it's talking about. It's been in the budget for about 3 or 4 years now. The request came from the older kids who play on the baseball field and the town team. During the evening, they can't get a game in time because of the longer innings here at softball fields.
So Nate, this was a requested project based on interest.
Correct. So we've got, in terms of users, now this is it's on the screen behind you there too. This is a full-size baseball field, and which are, in our area, are few. And so the users are going to be the traveling baseball, St. Francis, and as Jack mentioned, our town ball team. And I think there's probably a lot of people that maybe don't even know that East Bethel has a amateur baseball team, and we have had them for about 15 years now, the East Bethel Bandits. They play in St. Francis currently, even though we have this field here, and the reason is, and this is the same for the older kids too, is the town ball teams are they're adults, they're anywhere from 18 to 50 or 60. A lot of them have jobs, so their games don't start until 7 o'clock. And, by the time they're done, it's dark, so they have to have fields with lights. So that's one of the challenges they have. So part of this is bringing our town ball team back from St. Francis to East Bethel. And this will be their home field, but the field's also going to be used by other baseball groups as well. So it is investment. It's usually when these fields are built, it's a big step because it's one big investment. But as Nate mentioned, this has been a long-range plan for a while too. So.
I understand that, and I've
But
seen it
you know
before.
this in terms of how do you measure investment on parks and
Well,
benefits? It's hard.
We've had other projects in the city that have been in the works for many, many years
Mhm.
that have just been flat out canceled because somebody didn't like it or somebody didn't feel that it was justified. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily one of those projects, but I think that when I was looking at the capital acquisition plan, there was currently like $30,000 in the budget with another $60,000 going to be added to it next year. And with the purchase of that project, it was going to be $35,000 in the hole in order to do this project next year. So I just want city staff and council to consider whether or not this is the right time in order to run this project, and I thank you for listening. The other topic that I wanted to ask about, and I'm not here to start a big argument over it, but I am kind of curious about it because I think that it could increase the city's tax responsibilities, and that has to do with the fact that the city is going to lose their animal control officer here at the 1st of June. And the options in how we can get that, to be covered seems to be pretty limited. And I guess one of the things that kind of makes me consider, about this particular item is the fact that it may end up being the responsibility of the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. And if that's the case, then we are now taking away the time that they should be spending on, crime and other items. And I think we've all seen how often that somebody has had a truck stolen, had a trailer stolen, and other issues similar to that in our city, rather than, having somebody picking up a dog, and whether they're going to have to transport that dog to a location, whether that be the Humane Society or someplace in another city, because it doesn't seem to me that we have the capability in the city in order to place those animals. So where are we at with this process, and where do you think that we should go from here?
I think where we're at is, we haven't had a discussion yet.
It's on Monday's agenda.
It'll be on a work meeting agenda. Well, yeah, it is on council agenda.
It's
for
on
next
council
Monday,
agenda for Monday.
For an
we'll discuss
RFP.
it, so. Right, so we haven't even got into the options yet.
Yeah, just broadly speaking, right now, there's 3 options that we have. Number one is to contract with the Humane Society for impound services and use our CSO hours, community service officers, for transport of animals that are picked up to that facility. We're also going to send out a request for proposals. There aren't many of these people that provide this. We have come up with 2 new leads in addition to others that we had contacted back in 2020 when this was sent out. And we're looking into discussing possibly the formation of a joint powers agreement, maybe with surrounding cities, to go cooperatively on a service like this. So hopefully we'll get some response from the RFPs and maybe come up with another private contractor to do it. That would be the best option. In the interim, though, it looks like we will be using the Humane Society for impound services and CSO time for transport.
If we do go along the lines of using Anoka County Sheriff's Office for this duty, do you not anticipate that they would want to restructure their contract with the city and how much they charge the city for those services?
If the CSO hours exceeded what's in the contract, I'm sure that's one thing they would want to do.
But even with that, the CSO is only part of the day. Many of these calls are in the evenings and at night, so there's challenges with any of these options that we're going to have to work through. The irony of it, this is a service that cities are not required to provide. This is totally discretionary, but at the same time, I think it is an important service to provide. And we just have to it's been a challenge to find a way to provide it in the past. Even before Gratitude Farms, the city was challenged by that, and the sheriff was. They were gathering the dogs a lot of times, and we were holding them. It was not a good situation. So it's not an easy thing to resolve. I don't know if we're going to find a nice, clean path to find the most efficient way to provide the service, but we're looking. So.
And I can definitely tell it's gonna be more than one meeting discussing this.
Well, I think it depends on what options we have. We may have several. We may only have one option. You don't know, but we need to find a way to provide you service. And I'll just throw out there, it's, no secret, this has been a social media issue for many years. And I think I'll just put it out as a challenge for all those that are involved in this issue or feel strongly about the issue. We're certainly open to options and suggestions on how to provide the service in the best way, so. So we don't have an answer yet, but we're definitely looking at it, so.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Randy. Evening.
Hello, Dusty Johnson, Okinawa. I just have a suggestion on that line. I used to take care of a dog grooming place, and the policeman, I realize that we're talking about having the police do it or having a person, an animal control person. But in the city that I was in, they would have the police do it, and the police had a key to the local dog grooming station. I know there's one in Ham Lake, it's not East Bethel, I get that. But that's how they did it. They'd drop it off there, then animal control would come by in the morning. And everything obviously that police do is documented. I had 1 dog this month, 2 dogs this month, et cetera. And the dog grooming, they would pay the dog grooming people, like a nightly rental fee or whatever, however that worked, the city would do that to pay for the dog's storage, because they have cages in all the dog grooming places. And then animal control would come pick them up in the morning. And I just happened to know that because I was taking care of it. It was midnight and a cop came in, he had a key, he put the dog in there, I'm like, what are you doing here? And he told me, and I was like, well, that's a really good system. He said, yeah, it works out great. So just throwing that out there.
And that's kind of similar to what we did before we had animal control
Okay.
officers. We actually had a kennel in the maintenance building, and the sheriff deputies would bring the dogs and leave them in there. And then,
Similar, yeah.
but,
Yeah.
like on weekends, the deputies would also be feeding them and, cleaning and
Or
everything
it was,
else.
or it was city employees that came in and did it,
Yeah,
public
but
works.
a lot of times it was the deputies, and even with what you just suggested, it's taking a police officer off the road. And
Right on.
I'm not sure what community it was, but
Cambridge.
for most part, we only have 1 car on the road in our entire city. For half the day, we have 2 cars. And so that's part of that trade-off of what do we do for that, so.
Yeah. No, you said you were open ideas. I just.
No, I
great,
think
thank
that's
you.
good. It's good, that's one suggestion.
It's a
Thank
discussion.
you.
Do you have a kennel? I know you like animals, so. Anyone else have questions?
Russ Drevlo, 19762 Naples Street, Northeast. I'll talk to the roads guy here probably after the meeting. I know it was about, excuse me, about 10 years ago or so, we tried to get East Bethel, we tried to get Naples Street tarred. We had some guys that came up, they got a group, they asked everybody. The city did a survey, yep, it'll cost X amount of dollars, the survey did. When it came time that you were gonna vote on it, a couple of our neighbor gals called and said, is there gonna be a vote tonight? And they were told no. 3 of the guys came that night, and we had 1 person on our street who came and brought 5 of his buddies. And it was no. They got turned down. Well, the last 2 years on a gravel road, we got a bunch of 4-wheelers and some motorcycle kids, and I go out every time and stop them. Hey, quit tearing up our roads because they're tearing up our dirt roads and driving over the bumpy roads and stuff. And it's just not me, it's other neighbors that are with. I've talked to 3 people tonight, or 2 other people tonight. They did a survey. Do I have to go back through and talk to everybody on the street to get an okay, to try to get a hold of somebody to get this process started again to see if we can get our road tarred? And the second part of the question is, Naples Street, runs down, and off of it is 197th. And I know there was a couple on 197th that was a no, and I don't think they had showed up to the meeting that night. But is there a way that we can do it like maybe in a two-part thing? If I can talk to everybody, and if some of them on 197 don't want to do it or whatever, where they can just do the Naples Street? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Actually, I was here when that happened. I remember what you're describing, and I do remember there was a lot of support for having that paved and assessed, and it was voted down. But if you want to start the process over, you'd have to do a new petition. I don't know, there could be new residents, and, you know, you may want to do it two ways, without 197th and with 197th.
Yep.
It would be best to do it all at once. You could probably get a better price doing it that way.
No, I understand, yeah.
But I think I would do it two ways, and you can present that petition to the city council, and then they can decide if there's enough interest. They can order the estimate, and then the estimate will be presented to the residents, and they can decide if they want to proceed with it and go along with the assessment process.
Okay, all right. And that would, I don't know how long that, if I can get a quick answer in a couple of weeks to come back to a council meeting or to talk to somebody to see if we can get the ball rolling, is that gonna take like a next year, you know, it would be a project for next year, or?
It all depends on how fast you can get the petitions and get them into city council, have them do the review. The city engineer would do an estimate. We'd have another meeting, present the estimate to you, and then you could decide if you want it. Then we would bid the project, and there would be the second opportunity to say yes or no too. So even though we got an estimate, it's not final until the bid comes in and the residents approve that,
Yep,
or okay with it.
And the thing that I was most upset about, I'm a lineman for XL Energy downtown Minneapolis. I wound up working that night. I couldn't get out of work because they had outages. When they voted on it, some of the guys, the couple that had started this to get the ball rolling, said, that guy lives on Naples, the other 5 don't. Doesn't matter, we took the vote. And I said, I would have pulled out my billfold and said, here's my driver's license. This is the property I live on. I would ask that we take another vote. That was my thing that I asked them, and they said they didn't even think of that. Because like I said, the one guy brought 5 buddies in, and like I said, it got shot down. And the last,
I mean, I was on council, and I'm pretty sure we knew who was voting yes or no for that.
well,
I don't think what you're describing, you're saying 5 people don't even live in a neighborhood came in and
yep,
voted.
yes.
I know that didn't happen.
Yes, it did. It did. We didn't, the couple of the guys that were here said the 5 guys that he showed up with, they had never seen before. They went out and got in vehicles that don't even drive down our road. And like I said, I wasn't here that night, and like I said, you know, it happened, water under the bridge kinda, but it just, the next time if they take a vote, you know, if there's a way that, if something like that would come up again, if we can't get something, would council take another vote with showing ID?
Well, it'd be a
You
new
know.
process, so, and we know how many properties are there, and, you know, it's also, it's not a resident vote. It's always gonna be a council vote, but
Ultimately.
what councils generally follow is, we look for like 75%.
Correct.
75%
majority.
of properties being in favor.
Yep.
That's just kind of a guideline, and we don't have to follow that, so.
Okay, all right. I was just curious, like I said, it's been quite a while. Hasn't been too bad, but the last 2 years with the 4-wheelers being able to drive down the roads, they're ripping the roads up. And we're sitting out, a campfire out in the front yard, trying to enjoy the weekend or the evenings, and you got them ripping up and down the roads, and we get dusted. And it's, the last couple of years, it's really gotten sick.
Yeah, I think like Jack
So-
said, you're gonna have to start a new petition.
Okay, no, I just wasn't sure.
Staff can work with you on that, so.
And if you're having issues with the 4-wheelers and the little dirt bikes, call the sheriff's department.
Bad thing is, they show up a half hour later and everybody's
Not
gone,
again.
and they're gone, and it's like, well, I can't do nothing.
Yeah.
We've done that
Yeah.
a time or two, and you know, they're not right there on the
Well,
spot.
maybe you'll get lucky and they're
Yeah.
close, so.
Okay, yeah, it just, I mean, I
Like I
usually-
said earlier, we only have one car over 40-some square miles. so
No, I
it's-
understand that, and I don't have any complaints. To me, the sheriff's department, they do, every once in a while, you see them drive through the neighborhood, you know, and we're very grateful that, you know, that we got who we do up here. So,
And maybe it is time to get Naples paved and get your neighbors together.
yeah, like I said, it's, the last 2 years, it just, I mean, we got one of the neighbors goes out and sprinkles a salt solution or something down on the road to try to keep, I don't know what he
Make
uses or
chlorine
whatever,
probably.
but just to try to get
Yep.
the dust down and
It is
that, you
dust
know.
control, yeah.
We've given him some money and he's drove down by us, but that doesn't last very long either. So, okay, I think that was about it for everything that I had tonight. So I'll try to get a few of the other people. I'll try to make it down 197th and ask. But like I said, I know the one guy that was on the corner, he's not there anymore. And down on 197th, I know we got 2 or 3 new people that moved in within the last couple of years, so I'll start the ball rolling again on it then, and
Okay,
hopefully
great.
maybe have something.
And
to
if you have any questions, get up with myself after this. I'll give you some contact information for myself and Nate Ashford. We'll be glad to help you out
Okay,
any way
I've
we
talked to
can.
Nate a few years back or whatever, but I just appreciate your time, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Russ. Who's next? Oh, we're rolling for an hour now, all right.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Pauley, live over on 201st Avenue. I have a question about having chickens on our property. I know my neighbor loves chickens, but online it says that you're able to have 1 chicken per 0.01 acres, which on 1 acre would mean you can have 100 chickens. I don't think that's accurate, because then it also says that if you have less than 3 acres, that you're limited to 6 chickens, I believe. So I'm curious to know if online, if that's accurate information. Also, I was wondering, I'm at 2.5 acres. I don't plan on having 250 chickens, but I was thinking maybe 20 chickens, 10, 20. I saw the number 6 somewhere with less than 6 acres. I guess my question for you is, can I ask the neighbors if they're okay with more than 6? Is that something that's permissible? Or is there some other answer to that question?
If you'll give me your address, we'll get you an answer tomorrow. We'll have to look
Okay.
that up, but
There's a lot of numbers involved.
Yeah, there's,
And where you are and,
And on behalf of your neighbors, I think they'll be happy you don't have 250 chickens.
I'm happy I don't have 250.
And
Watch out.
I'll let-
on behalf of the
There is a number,
city,
and then there's also a restriction on roosters too, and I don't know what that is. I just-
no roosters.
no
Yeah,
roosters, no
No
roosters.
roosters, there we go.
That one we know.
Okay, I have a couple other questions about, like, if I wanted,
Sure.
whether a sheep or something like that, but I can ask that question offline.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
And thanks for asking a question before you put 250 chickens on. 'Cause then we
And your
have
neighbors
bigger
came in
issues.
here.
Be a lot of eggs, though.
You would be, at the price of eggs.
That's true. It's an investment now. Anyone else? Otherwise, let's talk about a couple things that are going on in the city. First of all, Booster Day. Booster Day is July 16th. And Tim, you want to describe what's, I have a flyer here. I did.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, everything, we're hoping back full tilt this year. We're gonna have the parade, car show, food trucks, 2 bands, fireworks, so, I think it starts at about 11 o'clock. Vendors across the street, and the parade will be later in the afternoon, but we're gonna have like you said, the local ball team is gonna have a ball game over there this year, so it's, hopefully back to full tilt like it was 3 years ago. We missed the last couple with COVID, and then we had rain 1 year, so
I think 2
it'll be a good afternoon.
Years.
Yeah,
We're having art, like a art demonstration and authors are going to be here, local authors selling their books. Come and meet some residents who have published books. Pretty impressive. I bought some of their books. Really.
Things for kids, blow-ups, things like that, so.
The balloon guy to go up and down the
Yep.
parade route.
Balloon guy, yep,
A lot of stuff going on.
yep. Like I said, hopefully back to full tilt like it was 3 years ago.
And a new feature this year is, I understand we're gonna have a burnout contest with the cars, so somewhere in the park, so they'll be new.
Good one.
So we used to have tractor races years ago, now we're gonna have a burnout contest, so there'll be something interesting too.
Yep.
And the timing has changed for a lot of this and from our traditional?
Have they set the time?
Well, I think the earliest we're starting was like 11 o'clock. I don't have the exact,
Vendors set up at 10
yeah,
and
And then
11.
the kiddie parade was at 11, and then the big parade starts
I thought it was in the afternoon.
at
yeah, 1 or 2.
1. I think it's at 1, and,
Yeah.
okay.
There it is.
The only issue we might have this year is our pet zoo guy passed away here like a week ago. But we're looking for, hopefully a solution for pets, so. If you've got them, we'll put you in the parade, or put you in the park, so.
Well, we kind of went with, they kind of went with the kids' stuff first, early in the day, so that the kids can see the parade, and then if you want to take them home or whatever before the bands really start and the fireworks start.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So, and like Tim mentioned, the Bandits will be playing one of their few games this summer in the unlit field because it'll be a day game. But that, we're, every year, Booster Days tries to add something new, just to bring a little variety in, and I think this year we got a few things, so.
Yep.
And then fireworks.
Fireworks at
The night.
10 o'clock, I would imagine somewhere around there.
Our Booster Day committee still looking for volunteers on Booster Day?
Correct. You don't have to come to a meeting. If you want to volunteer that day, we're looking for people to help coordinate the parade, lining up the vehicles down here on Palisade. So, or if you want to come to a meeting, it's the second Wednesday of the month. And boy, we can use the help. But yeah, if you don't want to come and you want to volunteer just for the day, let us know.
It's easy, non-stressful work.
Yes.
they say. Actually, it is, but it's a lot of fun, and if you just want to help, we need coordinators, and we need people to help park, and we need all kinds of good stuff.
The other thing that the city's been working on for the last several months is assessing broadband internet in our city. And it's been a priority for council for a while, for staff to try to improve connectivity and broadband availability in the city. And particularly over the last couple of years with COVID, it's obviously brought a little more focus to that. But the city, we retained a consultant to assist the city in doing that, and we've got the draft report. It's very thorough, very detailed, and talks about, how many users in the city don't have access, don't have enough access, and the whole idea is to come up with a plan to provide access to everyone in the city. As we all know, we're pretty spread out for most part in our city, and running cable to every house is costly. It's pretty easy to see, but we're looking for ways to, whether by cable or other means, to improve broadband within the city. And kind of interestingly is we're sort of on the forefront, because now Anoka County they recognize what we're doing here as a city on the edge of the county, and they're recognizing there's other parts of the county that have the same issues. So they're basically going to do the same type of approach, perhaps use some of our data that we've generated, but the idea is to improve broadband through the northern part of the county, so which helps us all. And whether it's people working from home, kids on school, just streaming, entertainment, whatnot, it's something that we have to deal with. So that's something we're working on right now. We'll be discussing it in the next few meetings again too, so. So if you don't have broadband, we're looking for you, so we're trying to find a way to get there. What else we got going on?
I want to promote one of our businesses. U-Pull and Parts has an open house this weekend, starting tomorrow from 1 to 4, and Saturday from 10 to 3, and Saturday they're having a food truck. But they put a new addition on there, and I've been in there, it's quite the place. They've got 4 bays now, and they pull a car apart like you wouldn't believe, and it's the cleanest place I've ever seen. They recycle the fluids, they burn the fuel oil, and it's something to see. So if you have time, step over to U-Pull and Parts this weekend. I think you'll be impressed.
Okay. Any other announcements? What haven't we talked about you'd like to know? I guess we inform you really well, so.
Do pretty good. It's nice to see some new faces. There's some new faces in the audience.
And you can always attend our council meetings as well, not just town hall meetings. I mean, not all of them have such delicious treats that some residents bring and share with us. But,
And if anybody's interested, it's election year, there's 4 seats up, 2 4-year terms, a 2-year term, and a mayor term. So if you want to get up here and take a shot at it, put your name in this fall.
You have my seat right now.
Steve, one other announcement
Yes.
is the city has their local Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting on Monday at 5:30. If you wish to appeal your valuation that the city tax assessor gave you, this is the time to come. It's the only time we're allowed to act as a council to adjust that valuation. So it's from 5:30 to 6:45. It would be best if you could contact me, that way I can get a list to the city council on who may be here to appeal their valuation. They'll have time to look at it a little bit over the weekend, and it'll save some time at the meeting.
And along those lines, if you haven't heard yet, I mean, everyone's valuation pretty much went up. But I heard the average increase was 20-some%. So, which is crazy, I know, but everyone was affected by that, so.
There's our housing market.
yep.
Chief has something.
As Brian said, council we like to think we make ourselves as accessible as we can. These town halls we've been doing for a long time, 15 years. And we have our council meetings, we all have email, we all have phones, so please don't hesitate. You don't have to wait to town halls to contact us. And again, we're one of the residents. We are these 5, and we're all here to serve the city, so.
Yep, come talk to us if you want to talk personally before a meeting, stay after a meeting, we'll gladly stay and talk with you if you have a certain issue, or if you just want to come and observe. More than for you to do that, in fact, we like a full audience. We like our residents to be informed and actively interested in their city, because it's not just our city up here, this is all your city. So we're just some people that put their name on a ballot for some odd reason.
Okay, well, one last speaker here. He wasn't here when Jack made the introductions, but Fire Chief DeSharm is here. And I know Chief does never turn down an opportunity to talk about fire safety. Good evening.
Mayor, council, residents. One of my lieutenants and training officer reminded me to make these couple of announcements. First of all, May 12th, the fire department is going to have a recruitment open house, and this is going to kick off our recruiting period where we're looking for firefighters. We're going to have it at Station 1, which is 2751 Viking, and we're looking for responders and firefighters. A little background, last year, 2021, we answered 865 calls. Year to date, we're 20 ahead of where we were last year, so we're a busy little fire department. So we're looking for people to want to serve the community. pay for the training. One other thing is that there is a pension that goes along with that, that comes from state aid money. So if you get a chance, stop by, and at least say hi. The other thing that's come, I'm sorry?
Question on that?
Yep.
If a resident has absolutely no experience in EMT or fire department, rescue, or any of that, can they still become a firefighter?
Absolutely. You know, they can become a very, very good firefighter. Your firefighters are very well trained. They're very good at what they do, both on the medical side and on the firefighting side, and car accidents and everything else.
And they're a good bunch of people.
Yes, and even Bob can attest to that. So the second announcement is, you'll be hearing more and more about this, is sometime in September, October, we haven't set the date, is we're going to do a Citizens Fire Academy, okay? So it's going to be probably 2-3 sessions where you can come in and put out a fire, you can do what we do, you run the trucks, you know, maybe even drive a truck in an obstacle course. And of course, the reason why we're doing that is we want to get your interest going, so you come and be part of the fire department. So I'm not even going to talk about Bernie today. Maybe Monday. So,
Any questions for our fire chief?
You're gonna let me drive that truck in an obstacle course? No.
Is the Burning Man still on?
Yes, it is. Remember, the green stuff has to get higher than the brown stuff, and there's still a lot of brown stuff out there, even if it's wet.
And recreational fires, 3x3x3 are still allowed?
Yes, they are. And remember, recreational fires does not include couches and mattresses. All right, thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thanks,
chief.
Chief.
Any other last questions? Otherwise, we'll retire back to the cookie room. Any comments from council?
I just want to say thanks for everybody showing up.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the
Thank you very much.
residents.
It's nice to get some feedback, concerned citizens, so thank you for everything.
And thank you for the goodies. We have a resident who keeps feeding us goodies.
Do you
It's
want-
another incentive to come to a council meeting. You get
Yes.
random baked goods. And they are delicious, by the way.
Steve, do you want to do the adjournment now?
I'm sorry?
You want to do the adjournment now at this time?
Yeah, I think so, too.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Our town hall meeting is officially adjourned, but again, we can